Welcome to the Spy Collection. My name is Anastasios, and following up from our previous episode of this series, today we look at an allegedly leaked US intelligence community document that focuses further on spy planes. Specifically, this. Clearly, we cannot comment on its authenticity, so our focus here is primarily on the educational use and secondarily on its potential historical value as a spy artifact. Its title was J-32 Black Sea Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance Sorties from September 22, 2022 to February 26, 2023. J-32 of the US Joint Chief of Staff is typically led by the Air Force and as per its name is under J-3, meaning military operations. Specifically, J-32's focus is ISR operations. So definitely the best source to get an update on ISR flights in the Black Sea. On the bottom left of the map, we see that this was produced on February 27, 2023. And in the map, we see the Black Sea with a yellow border indicating the operational area of the spy planes. Then we have the inactive advisory area that expired on January 24, 2023. We'll explain that further later on. In the typical ISR tracks that the various types of spy planes were using. That is, the NATO-operated RQ-4 Global Hawk, the US Air Force's RQ-4 Block 40, the British RC-135 Rivet Joint, as well as the French Mirage 2000 aircrafts. An interesting note here is that the US Secretary of Defense also defined a threshold, that red line, as the directed standoff. So basically the spy planes could fly 50 nautical miles from the shore, since that is legally international airspace, but specifically on the northern side, the shoreline of Ukraine and Russia, SecDef extended that to 40 nautical miles. Clearly this limits the capabilities of the intelligence collection, but at the same time, it also drastically reduces the risk of an escalation or accident. Then, on the top left, we have a summary of the ISR sorties for the defined period per aircraft and nation-state that operated it. As we can see, it was primarily the US with some support from the UK and France. It's worth noting that here we see that France didn't use only their Mirage 2000 fighter jets with ISR pods, but also their E-3 Sentry surveillance aircrafts, as well as that there were 9 instances that the United States used the RQ-170 Sentinel and 10 cases of using the MQ-9 Reaper. Lastly, on the top right, we start with a bottom line up front, saying that February 15th was the most recent UK Rivet Joint Block 41 flight, that the British and the French sorties are flown under national authorities and not NATO or the US European Command, that the next British sortie was scheduled for February 28th, and that on September 29th, a British Rivet Joint spy plane was almost shot down. Based on open source information, we identified this flight as Romeo 7215 of the Royal Air Force RC-135 Whiskey Rivet Joint with registration number Zulu 664. The aircraft took off from Waddington in the UK and flew in the pattern we saw in this previously classified US military report. Then, according to Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace,
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would also like to share with the House details of a recent incident which occurred in international airspace over the Black Sea. On the 29th of September, an unarmed RAF RC-135 Rivet Joint, a civilian I-Star aircraft on routine patrol over the Black Sea, was interacted with by 2 Russian armed Su-27 fighter aircraft. It is not unusual for aircraft to be shadowed, and this day was no different. During that interaction, however, it transpired that one of the Su-27 aircraft released a missile in the vicinity of the RAF Rivet Joint beyond visual range. The total time of the interaction between the Russian aircraft and the Rivet Joint was approximately 90 minutes. The patrol completed and the aircraft returned to its base. In light of this potentially dangerous engagement, I've communicated my concerns directly to my Russian counterpart, Defense Minister Shoigu, and the Chief of Defence Staff in Moscow, and has done so. My colleague, the Chief of Defence Staff, has also communicated his concerns. In my letter, I made clear that the aircraft was unarmed in international airspace and following a pre-notified flight path. I felt it was prudent to suspend these patrols until a response was received by the Russian state. The reply by the Russian Ministry of Defense on the 10th of October stated that they have conducted an investigation into the circumstances of the incident and stated it was a technical malfunction of the Su-27 fighter. They also acknowledged that the incident took place in international airspace. The UK Ministry of Defence has shared this information with allies, and after consultation I have restarted routine patrols, but this time escorted by fighter aircraft.
In total, the British spy plane was over the ISR track region for around 3 hours, and its total mission lasted approximately 10.5 hours. Going back to the report, we read that since that incident on September 29th, 5 sorties reacted to, and we have a series of incidents with different CPAs. In other words, those are situations that those aircrafts had to avoid a collision with another object. We can speculate that this other object was either an allied or enemy aircraft, but most likely it was Russian aircrafts intercepting the spy planes. Apparently the most dangerous one listed here was on December 30th, 2022, when a British River Joint spy plane escorted by 2 Eurofighter Typhoon jets had a CPA of just 100 feet. Now you probably also understand why the Typhoons were with it. It was due to the previous incident. We tried to also confirm this with open source information, and we discovered this flight that matches that information. Royal Air Force's RC-135 Whiskey River Joint with registration number Zulu Zulu 665 and call sign Romeo 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 7260 took off from RAF Waddington and headed to the ISR area, again for a total mission time of around 10 hours, with around 3 of them being in the ISR region. Along with it, it had 2 Eurofighter Typhoon FGR-4 fighter jets with call signs Psycho 61 and Psycho 62, registration numbers Zulu Kilo 351 and Zulu Kilo 362, that took off from the Royal Military Air Base Akrotiri in Cyprus. Just like in the previous case, none of those issues of the spy planes in the Black Sea were publicly known prior to this leak. It's worth noting that on March 14, 2023, when 2 Russian Su-27 aircrafts intercepted and damaged a United States MQ-9 Reaper UAV, causing it to crash, Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Pat Ryder stated that
while intercepts in and of themselves are not that uncommon, the fact that this type of behavior from these Russian pilots, that is uncommon and unfortunate and unsafe. And so, again, would echo General Hecker's call on the Russians to continue to fly safely.
This list here from this previously classified J32 document makes it quite clear what that statement meant with actual numbers. We see at least a couple of such incidents per month, including one with an MQ-9 on February 22nd. But we will not cover all of them. If you are interested, then it's a relatively simple exercise for OSINT enthusiasts. On the combat, search and rescue space, it says that the responsibilities were on individual nations with no bilateral agreements in place and no NATO command and control involved. Then, on that purple box, the advisory area, we are reading that the Russian advisory area expired on January 24th. It was active from December 10th and it wasn't issued as a NOTAM, just posted to the website. Advisory area is a designated area within a flight information region to which air traffic advisory notices apply. And this was the artifact of this episode, which is also our last one for 2023. If you like this series and you'd like us to continue it bi-weekly in 2024, please let us know. Spy planes play a critical role in intelligence gathering and military reconnaissance operations, and although there is a lot of publicly available information about some of their capabilities, it's very rare to have a glimpse into the operational planning and activities such as those demonstrated by this document. That's another component of the espionage world that is hidden from plain sight, reminding us that nothing is as it seems.